Is it safe to recan spaghetti sauce? And how do you do it if it is? Well, today I'm going to show you how and how to know if it is safe to recan spaghetti sauce that you buy in bulk. I bought several cans of spaghetti sauce in bulk at a great deal. I think I gave $4 and something a can for these number 10 cans of spaghetti sauce, and one of these cans will hold 3.5 quarts of spaghetti sauce. And if you've bought spaghetti sauce in the store lately, you know that 1 quart of spaghetti sauce will cost you anywhere from $3 to $5 depending on the brand. So that's a really good deal. But although I love spaghetti, when I make spaghetti, this would be way too much sauce to use. There are a couple of options if you buy sauce like this in bulk. The other option would be to divide the sauce up and put it in plastic freezer containers, either plastic freezer bags or plastic freezer containers, and freeze it. Or we can recan it if one condition is met, and we are going to talk about that condition. How do we know if it is safe to recan the spaghetti sauce that we bought? And I'm talking about using a water bath canner. So here I have my water bath canner on the stove. If you are finding this video helpful, are you enjoying my videos, I hope you would consider subscribing to my channel. Hit the bell button so you get all the notifications when I upload new videos. Share the video with your friends who you think might enjoy them. I try to do videos on cooking and canning and preserving food and around the homestead. I appreciate your views, I appreciate your subscribing, and I'm so glad that you chose to join me today. And we're talking about water bath canning the spaghetti sauce. If there's at least one condition that has to be met, but I should say there are more than one. First of all, you want to get spaghetti sauce that does not have meat in it, because anything with meat is going to need to be pressure canned. And you could technically pressure can that spaghetti sauce. If you do have spaghetti sauce with meat in it, then you're going to have to pressure can it, and you're going to have to pressure can it for the meat processing times. And spaghetti sauce already, you know, it has sugar in it, and a lot of times when you pressure can something like that, the sugars will caramelize and the sauce is going to turn really dark and possibly burn. So it's just not a great idea. But this spaghetti sauce does not have meat in it. And the most important condition is the pH level of that spaghetti sauce. So basically spaghetti sauce, at least this one, is very simple. It only has tomato puree and some seasonings, which is onions and sugar, salt and spices, and garlic, and it also has a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and citric acid. That's all that is in this. You're going to want to read the ingredients of the sauce that you are recanning. Make sure that it is not, does not have meat or a lot of other things. Like, I personally wouldn't water bath recan a chunky sauce if it had big chunks of vegetables and whatnot, just because I know those would have to be pressure canned, and I wanted to water bath can it. But the most important thing is the pH level of this sauce. Now, I have a little pH meter here, but you can also buy litmus paper, and you can check the pH level with that. And the pH level, I checked it, of this spaghetti sauce is 4.3. And that is well within the range that it can be water bathed. If it is above or 4.5, you would have to pressure can it. So you want to check the pH level of your spaghetti sauce. And that's the same when you're canning tomatoes, tomato juice, and all of those tomato products. The pH level has to be below 4. So since it is, and that means it's acidic. Acidic foods can be water bathed. Non-acidic foods with a higher pH level have to be pressure canned. So you want to be safe and make sure that you are doing things properly. I know there are rebels out there who say it's my kitchen and my rules. I've been doing it this way in my family for years and generations, so forth and so on. And I am not here to argue with those people. I just know that when I recan this sauce, I want to know that it is safe and that it will be good on my shelf for a long, long time. I don't want to have to worry about was it processed correctly. I'm not a scientist. I don't have the equipment to test recipes and to know if I need to pressure can it or water bath can it and for how long, etc., etc., etc. And yes, I know times have changed. Thank God we have the information we do from years ago when the USDA did do testing to let us know how to safely can our food at home. Because if they were doing it today, they would probably just recommend we didn't do it. Who knows? But anyway, one thing you can do to always make sure that your canned food is safe. Let's say you're a little leery of home canned food because you don't want to give your family botulism. Number one, follow the regulations. Don't be a rebel. And number two, any food that you open up to cook that is not like a pickle, something in vinegar, or a jam, something with a high sugar content, those foods are safe because no bacteria can live in that environment. But let's say it's something else like green beans or tomatoes or meat or whatever. If you make sure you bring that food to a boil for 10 minutes, it will take care of any bacteria that you might be fearful of. It will kill off any bad bacteria that could possibly make you sick. So I'm not saying eat food that you know is bad. Don't do that with food that you already know is bad. But if you're just a little nervous about it, then you can do that and you can make sure that your food is safe for your family. But if you follow the regulation guidelines, your food will be safe and you won't have to worry. I'm going to be recanning this spaghetti sauce. Now this jar is empty. I went ahead and put it in my pot so I could have a can to hold that wasn't heavy. But first thing you want to do is get all of your material together. So here I have my jars, which I have sterilized. I put them in a pot of boiling water for 10 minutes and I sterilized them. I have all of my rings and my lids over here. I have my jar lifter to put them in and out of my water bath canner. I have my funnel to help me fill the jars. I have this spoon to help me stir my tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce. I have my water bath canner here with the rack in the bottom of it. I have it filled with water, not all the way full, but I have the water in here. I already brought it to a boil and I turned it down until I get ready to put my jars in. And I have my ladle to dip out my sauce, and I have my can opener to open my cans. Of course, I have my pH meter, but I already checked the pH level of the spaghetti sauce to make sure I could recan it. So make sure you have all of your materials together when you get started, because the worst thing ever, I think, is when you get into a job and you're in the middle of something and you don't have the tool that you need. It'll be much less stressful if you take the time to clean up your kitchen, get all of your material together and be ready to go, and then start the canning process. It will take away so much of the stress and it will actually be an enjoyable process. The first thing we want to do is we want to heat our spaghetti sauce, because all of the canning in the USDA regulation guide says to do a hot pack. So we don't want to take it directly from this can and put it in our jars. We want to do a hot pack. Another reason we want to do a hot pack is because our water is already hot in our canner. And if we were to put a cold jar with cold contents down inside of our hot water, what would happen is this jar would go into shock and the bottom would just crack right off of it. And we don't want that to happen either. And also, if the food that we put in here is cold instead of hot, then that guideline that says how long to process it is not valid anymore because that temperature was based on having hot contents in your jar. So just follow the directions and you will be fine. Just don't deviate. Also, I want to add, don't add anything to your spaghetti sauce. Let's say that you say, well, I love this brand of spaghetti sauce, but I always add mushrooms. So I'm going to go ahead and add mushrooms before I recan it. No, don't do that, because what you have done when you add anything, water, anything, vegetables, spices, herbs, any of that, you have messed with the pH level of that sauce. You can no longer count on the pH level being a safe level to water bath can. So just don't add anything. Do your seasoning and whatever you're going to do to that sauce when you use it. It's just as easy to season it when you get ready to use it as it would be to put it in the jar. And another thing is with certain herbs, the flavors change when you can them. So a lot of times it's better to wait until you get ready to cook with it before you do all of that seasoning. I already have 1 can of my sauce in my pot. So I have this big pot here. I'm going to turn my stove on, and I'm going to open these other 2 cans of spaghetti sauce. I'm going to put them in this pot and heat it up until it comes to a low simmer. And I'm going to let it simmer like that for about 10 minutes, and then we will be ready to put it into our jars. So let's get these cans open. I also washed the top of my cans. It's just very important to have everything clean. You don't want to introduce any kind of bacteria or germs if you can at all help it. And I just have this little manual can opener. I'm going to open these cans. And I'm going to do 3 cans at once because I know that each can will fill 3.5 jars. So that should give me 10 or 11 jars, and I know that many will fit into my canner. So that's why I'm doing 3 cans at once. So I'm going to let that heat up and come to a little simmer for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll put it into our jars. Okay, so our spaghetti sauce has been simmering for at least 10 minutes, and we are ready to put it into our jars. So I'm just going to ladle the spaghetti sauce into my jars, and I want to leave a 1-inch headspace. And 1-inch headspace, typically, you see you have the rings on your jar, and typically down to that bottom ring is 1 inch. So it's easy to tell where the 1-inch headspace is. I just thought I would point that out. You want to make sure that the rims of your jars don't get any spaghetti sauce on them. I'm just taking a clean paper towel and wiping around them. And then you're going to place your clean lids on the jars. Then we're going to put our rings on finger tight. And so that means, you know, just tight enough with your fingers. You don't wrench it down on really tight, and you don't put it too loose. And the reason for this is you want the air to be able to escape as the process is going on, but you don't want water to come into the jar and contaminate your contents. So finger tight is what works. And when you get these jars out of the canner, don't retighten the lids. Just let the process take its place naturally. Now I'm going to get all these jars filled to 1-inch head space, and then I'll bring you back as I put them in my water bath. Okay, we are now ready to put our jars into our water bath. Now I have an empty space, so I am going to fill a jar with hot water. So I'm going to put this jar of hot water, it doesn't have to have a lid, into this empty space to keep my jars from bouncing around. There's actually room for one more jar there, but I think I'll be fine. So I'm going to turn my heat up to high. You want to make sure that the water level in your canner covers the top of the jars. So just make sure the water level is over the jars. And we're going to put the lid on here, and we're going to bring this to a rolling boil, and then we will set our timer. Okay, so our water bath is now at a rolling boil, and we are going to set a timer for 45 minutes. The altitude where I am, the recommended water bath time is 45 minutes. This does vary with altitude, so you're going to want to check and see what the recommendation is for your altitude. Now, I'm going to put some links in the description below to some very handy websites that will give you this information. I also want to note that over here in this tea kettle, I have boiling water, because at any time during this 45 minutes, if my water level happens to drop and I think it's not going to be covering the top of my lids, I'm going to add boiling water. You don't want to add water that is not boiling, because what that's going to do is lower the temperature of your water, take away the boil, and then you're going to have to start your processing time over. So let's get our timer set, and I'll bring you back when it's time to take the jars out. So we are ready now to take our jars out of the canner to let them cool. Oh, they're already popping. One of my favorite sounds is when that lid seals. So here we have our jars fresh out of the canner, and one of them, or a couple of them, have already sealed, and we're just going to let them sit here until they cool completely. And then tomorrow I will take off the rings and wash the jar around where I took the ring off, just to make sure there's nothing there, and label the lids, and they'll be ready to go into the pantry. Our timer has gone off. So I'm going to turn the stove off. And I'm going to remove the lid. Now I'm just going to let this calm down and stop boiling, and then we will take our jars out of the water. Be sure and check out some of my other videos. I have videos on baking bread, canning, preserving food, and a few videos around the farm. I'm so glad you stopped by today. I hope this video was helpful. God bless. Bye-bye.